Titanic, nearly 30 years after its release, remains one of the most successful films ever made, but reducing it to a box office phenomenon misses what makes this movie so extraordinary. Now, the film combines spectacular visual effects, meticulous historical reconstruction, groundbreaking filming techniques, and an emotional story that has captivated audiences for generations. And the result is a film that entertains on every level while never losing sight of the people at the heart of its story. It was a blockbuster like no other. The movie came out in 1997. Nobody expected Titanic to become what it became. At the time, it was the most expensive film ever produced, with a budget of around $200 million, which is an astonishing figure even in the late 90s. Many industry observers predicted it would become a financial disaster. There were production delays, reports of cost overruns, and the enormous scale of the project led to some believe that it would sink before it reached cinemas. Instead, it became a phenomenon. Directed by James Cameron and starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, Titanic tells a fictional love story of Jack and Rose, set against the real-life sinking of the RMS Titanic in April 1912. The film became the first movie in history to earn over $1 billion at the worldwide box office, and held that title of the highest grossing films ever made until James Cameron surpassed it himself with his next movie, Avatar. More importantly though, it wasn't just a commercial success, it became a genuine cultural event. People returned to cinemas multiple times, quoted his dialogues, bought the soundtrack, and made it part of popular culture in a way films had ever been. One reason Titanic feels so authentic is the personality of its director. James Cameron is famous for his obsessive attention to detail. Before becoming a filmmaker, he studied physics at university. Although he did not complete a degree, even without a formal scientific qualification, he has always approached filmmaking like an engineer. Rather than accepting technical limitations, Cameron often invents new solutions. Throughout his career, he has pushed the boundaries of filmmaking with films such as The Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, Titanic, and later Avatar. His fascination with technology extends beyond cinema. Cameron has participated in deep-sea expeditions, explored the wreck of the Titanic itself dozens of times, and he even completed a solo dive to the deepest known point in the ocean, the Mariana Trench. So for Cameron, technology is never just spectacle, it is a tool to make audiences believe what they are seeing. The philosophy defines Titanic. Now, one of the film's greatest achievements is its physical recreation of the ship. Rather than relying entirely on digital effects, Cameron built an enormous replica of the Titanic in Mexico. The exterior set measured roughly 90% of the original ship length, mounted in a gigantic water tank designed specifically for the production. Many interiors, including the grand staircase, first-class dining room, corridors, cabins, engine rooms, and boiler rooms, were meticulously reconstructed based on surviving blueprints and historical photographs and expert research. The production team even reproduced details that most viewers would never consciously notice, such as furniture, carpets, light fixtures, wall panels, china, silverware, and costumes that were all designed to match the original ship as closely as possible. The digital effects, revolutionary for the late 90s, were used primarily to extend these practical sets rather than replace them. Computer-generated passengers filled the decks, digital ocean environments expanded the world, and visual effects seamlessly blended with full-scale physical construction. This combination of practical craftsmanship and digital enhancements is one of the reasons the film still looks remarkably convincing today. Now, the opening scenes immediately established that this is more than a historical drama. Instead of beginning the movie in 1912, Cameron starts at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean nowadays. These underwater sequences were not entirely computer generated. Cameron organized multiple real expeditions to the Titanic wreck using Russian MIR submersibles. Specially designed deep-sea cameras captured authentic footage of the wreck, resting nearly 4,000 meters beneath the surface. Now, this was incredibly difficult and expensive. The dives lasted many hours, with only a short window available to film. The real footage then was blended seamlessly with miniatures, studio sets, and visual effects. Narratively, these scenes do something equally important as the audience first encounters the Titanic, not as a glamorous luxury liner, but as a silent underwater grave. Only later, through Rose's memories, does the ship return to life. That contrast makes the tragedy far more powerful. Now, the romance between Jack and Rose provides the emotional connection that allows audiences to experience the catastrophe on a deeply personal level. But the story also explores the rigid social divisions of the early 20th century. Rose belongs to a wealthy upper class, trapped by expectations, social status, and an arranged future designed to preserve her family's position. Jack represents freedom. He owns almost nothing, yet he possesses something Rose lacks: independence. The film contrasts these two worlds visually. First-class passengers dine beneath crystal chandelier in quiet elegance. Meanwhile, third-class passengers fill crowded rooms with music, dancing, and celebration. Neither world is portrayed as entirely perfect, but the contrast illustrates how class-shaped everyday life aboard the ship. So when disaster strikes, those divisions become even more significant. Historically, survival rates vary dramatically between passenger classes, reflecting the inequalities of the time. Cameron incorporates this reality into the film, grounding the fictional romance within the broader social history of the tragedy. As a result, the love story becomes more than a romance. It becomes a lens through which audiences experience both glamour and the injustice of the Edwardian world. Perhaps the greatest achievement of Titanic isn't its visual effects, its romance, or even its historical accuracy. It's its pacing. Most disaster films begins with the catastrophe almost immediately. They rely on explosions, panic, and destruction to grab the audience's attention. James Cameron takes the opposite approach. For almost half of the film, Cameron introduces us to the ship itself. We wander through its luxurious first-class halls, its bustling kitchens, its elegant dining rooms, and its lively third-class parties. We meet its passengers, learn their dreams, fears, and ambitions, and slowly become familiar with the ship's layout. Without realizing it, we begin to think the Titanic as a place we know. Now this is crucial to the storytelling choices. Now by the time the iceberg finally appears, the audience isn't watching a random ship in danger. They're watching a place they've grown to attach to, and so when it happens, the disaster has suddenly become personal. Even the collision itself is remarkably understated. There is no enormous explosion, no dramatic musical crescendo, no spectacular action sequence. The iceberg scrapes along the starboard side of the ship. Glasses barely move. Some passengers don't even notice that anything unusual has happened. And that is precisely what makes the scene so effective. The real tension comes not from the impact itself, but from what follows. From the point of contact with the iceberg, Cameron increases the tension with extraordinary precision. At first, there is uncertainty, then concern, then disbelief, and then urgency, and ultimately, complete panic. The audience experiences the sinking exactly as the passengers did. Not as one sudden catastrophe, but as a slow, horrifying realization that every minute brings them closer to the inevitable. Importantly, the ship in the movie sinks at the actual pace the real Titanic sank. So this is one of the final reasons why Titanic continues to move audiences decades after its release. James Cameron simply doesn't tell us that the Titanic was an extraordinary ship. He makes us experience it. Long before the iceberg appears, the camera glides across the gleaming decks, the elegant grand staircase, the luxurious dining rooms, the towering funnels, and the endless corridors. We are invited to admire the ship from every possible angle. It isn't just the settings, it becomes a character. And like the passengers, we become fascinated by its beauty, its size, and the confidence it inspires. It represents the height of human ambition, a masterpiece of engineering, craftsmanship, and optimism. In many ways, this reminds me of another masterpiece of blockbuster cinema, Jurassic Park. Steven Spielberg doesn't introduce the dinosaurs as monsters waiting to attack. He first allows us to marvel at them. The famous Brachiosaurus scene is built entirely around wonder. The audience sees what the character sees, creatures that feel miraculous. Only after creating the sense of awe does Spielberg gradually transform the wonder into fear. James Cameron achieves something remarkably similar. He first makes us admire the Titanic, and then he makes us fear for it, and finally he makes us grieve. As the ship slowly disappears beneath the Atlantic, we aren't simply witnessing the destruction of a massive ocean liner, we are watching the loss of something that's come to feel almost alive. That's why the final image are so emotionally overwhelming. Very few filmmakers can create that kind of emotion transformation. In particular, rely massively on technological details and scientific accuracy, or indeed because of them. That is blockbuster filmmaking at its very best. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel to enjoy more videos. Thank you.